7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Okay, so the Umbrella Academy episode, season 2, episode 8, the 7 stages. So Vanya is waiting in the FBI building, and an agent comes in and starts questioning her, asking her who she is. She still doesn't remember much. She can't remember anything past like a month ago when she initially arrived and was hit by the car. He starts asking her about the origins of her name. You know, Vanya, that's Russian. He was like, "Are you Russian?" And he starts speaking to her in Russian, and then she responds to him in Russian, but then she has no idea how she knows Russian. And so now, you know, he's thinking that she's a spy, a Soviet spy. And she basically told him that he needs to let her go, and he of course he didn't, obviously. And she started to use her powers. There was this woman behind her who basically chloroformed her ass, and then she was knocked out again. Okay, so number 5, Luther and Klaus. So number 5 is losing his shit because I think at this point he's just frustrated and angry. He's like, you know what, screw everybody. I always did better when I was on my own. You know, of course he's upset they've missed this opportunity to go back to potentially prevent all this from happening. And Klaus is still being Klaus. And oh my God, you know, number 5 is always so mean. And you know, I think if it's not obvious, I think Klaus is my favorite character. He's just a hot ass mess, but. So he's there sitting on the ground, and Luther is trying to calm the situation down, and number 5 basically storms off, and he goes back into Elliot Place. Luther tells Klaus, go see Allison and make sure that she's okay, and try to find out what happened to everybody else. So number 5 is heading upstairs, and Luther is trying to talk to him. He basically was like, you know what, now I have to do something that I don't really want to do. But at this point I don't have any choice. And so he goes in the bathroom and slams the door. So Luther's standing there like, what are you talking about? What is it? What do you have to do? What do you have planned? And so Allison and Raymond dealing with the aftermath of the attack. You know, this black couple that has this dead white man in their house. Of course, Raymond is like, what the hell are we supposed to do? I'm gonna get the chair. She's trying to calm him down. Klaus shows up, and his approach kind of took Raymond by surprise. And he saw Allison basically pointed to the guy dead on the couch. He was like, "Okay, so is this going to be a burning or a burial?" And I think Raymond there, the nonchalantness of it all. He's like, "Okay, is this something they do all the damn time? What the hell? There's a dead white man, you know, it's a dead white man in my house." Like he's thinking he's going straight to death row. But okay, so the assassin, he's now back at the house, and he's obviously thinking back on his brother and the fact that he killed his brother. And he was initially going to cut off the hand that he used to strangle his brother, but then he received another canister, and then he noticed there was something off about this canister, and he realized that he had been manipulated. Like the messages that he was receiving, some of the messages he was receiving wasn't actually from the organization. And so now he's pissed. He's on the rampage now. So both his brothers are dead, and yeah, it's gonna be hell to pay. So Lila. So they're back still in her mom's office, and Lila basically brings Diego in because she wants him to be a part of her team. And so her mom is like, what the hell are you thinking? She was like, well, you told me that I could choose anybody that I want. She was like, yeah, well, hell, based on this decision, I'm thinking about taking your badge away. And so she thinks that she can bring Diego over to her side to work for the organization. And her mom was like, you know, your brother number 5 and I have basically a tumultuous past. And he said, yeah, my brother has a problem with everyone, including me. So at this point, he's kind of going along with it. And the mom was like, okay, Lila is saying that she's going to assume responsibility for anything that happens. And the mom was like, okay, so I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to give you enough rope to hang yourself. So you go on. If you want to bring Diego in, you do that. And so their mom she after talking to the conversation she had with Diego, she's now in Hargreeves' office and she's looking through his stuff and she's seeing like photos. You see this map where the spot is marked where the person stood to shoot Kennedy, and now he walks in, of course, and sees her, and she starts asking him questions like, what's going on with you? What is this all about? And he told her that, I told you that there are going to be some things that I'm not going to be able to tell you about right now. And she said, well, I can understand that, but I just want to know that, I need to know that you're a good person. I need to know that you're not going to do what I think you're going to do. And he basically said, there's going to come a time when I'll be able to tell you everything, but I just can't do it now. And she basically said, I can't wait that long. And she walks out. So he's now left there like, okay. And obviously she told him that Diego gave her the photo and told her about the Kennedy assassination. So there's that. So Luther, he's now, he's waiting for number 5 to come out of the bathroom. He eventually comes out and he's in the kitchen. He's like scarfing down all this water, and then he's throwing on all this baby powder. And Luther's like, what the hell are you doing? Oh, so you do have a plan. And so he remembered that in 1963, which is a very pivotal time for him, he was actually sent by the commission back to 1963 to make sure the assassination, Lord, I can't speak, of Kennedy happened. And so now he's trying to meet himself so that he can get the device, because he teleported with a time traveling device. So he wants to meet up with himself in order to get the device, but he knows himself and that he's not just going to be able to walk up to himself and take this device. So now he's trying to counteract some of the effects of running into yourself in the same timeline. And he was going through some of the the side effects. And he basically told Luther, like, I need you to be my point guy. Like, if I start falling off, or I start having some of the symptoms of some of the ramifications of me running into myself, basically I need you to understand that getting that case is the most important thing. So Luther, he goes with him to confront himself. Okay. So Carl, he's on the phone with the FBI and or with his brother, because his brother actually is the sheriff, or at least works for the sheriff department. I don't know. And so he's telling him that the agents are talking to Vanya, and that they think that she's a spy. And Carl feels vindicated. He feels like he just knew that something was off with Vanya, and he gets off the phone with her and he starts talking to his wife. And he's basically saying that they think that she's a spy. And of course she doesn't believe that. And she's like, well, if she was a spy, why would she be way out here on a farm? And he's like, well, he doesn't know. He just feels like she's led his wife astray, and that he now wants her to talk to the reverend or whoever their religious person is. And so he wants to get their marriage back on track, and he wants to travel. But Sissy is not, obviously she doesn't want to do that, but at the same time, again, she's a victim of the time in which she lives. She's, what else can she do? Especially now that Vanya is in custody, and that, they're now, deeming her a Soviet spy. Like that. I mean, just like, what did she do? So, but while this whole conversation is going on, Harlan, you can see there's been a change in Harlan ever since she resuscitated him. You saw like there was some transfer of some of her power, her energy or something that went into Harlan, which brought him back to life. And there's been a change in him ever since. And so he's kind of like ear hustling, like listening to this conversation. And so it's like Harlan is not as off as they believe. He's not still as different as they believe. So now Vanya wakes up and she's now in restraints. They have this thing on her head with all these electrodes attached to it. They have her feet in water, and basically they are going to torture her to get the answers out of her. And just to show her what they can do, that he turns the machine on and she's briefly electrocuted. And so he starts asking her questions like, who are you? Actually, the nurse, she actually put some drops in her eye, which caused her to start hallucinating. Like it had like this opiate effect on her. Like her vision was distorted, and obviously it was I guess it was an attempt to make her more compliant. So they start asking her questions, and then she starts having this dream for being back in the mansion, and her coming downstairs, her father calling for her, and she gets to the dining room table, and of course they're already sitting there, and she sits down at the table, and they're kind of taking little jabs at her about her memory and what she's done, and the father's telling her that she's afraid to remember and this whole thing, and it was, and so at this time you can still hear the agent asking her. He's asking her questions like, "Who are you? Like, why are you here?" And of course, she's not in any position to answer him right now. So Luther and number 5, they arrive at the bar, and this is he's and the 1963 version of number 5 is he's sitting at the bar. He's a middle-aged man, and it was decided that it would be better for Luther to approach him. So Luther approaches him, and Luther introduced himself, and initially he was kind of shocked. He was like, "Who in the hell are you?" Well, actually, he called him number 5, and so the man was looking at him like, "Who the hell are you?" He's like, "I'm number 1," and so he's like, "Luther," like, because he hadn't seen him obviously for forever, so he didn't know anything about the changes that Luther had gone through after he got that injection. So that's why he looked so different. So he was like, I don't want you to freak out, but there's a reason why we're here, and there's somebody that I need to introduce you to. And so the younger version of number 5 comes around the corner, and he looked like he's about to pass out. He's like, okay, what the hell is going on here? So we flash back to Lila and Diego. So Lila and Diego are walking down the hall. She's kind of giving them a brief overview of the organization and how, they can do good, do some good together. And she was like taking jabs at him, like, stop being a baby. He was like, oh yeah, that always works for me, being drugged and kidnapped and basically being held against my will. And so she takes him to, he decides that he was going to give it a chance for his own. He just trying to find out as much as he can. And so she takes him to orientation. And the orientation, I'm like, what the hell is this for this powerful organization? That damn video was so damn cheesy with this Sponge Bob looking character, like bouncing from one scene to the next, explaining like, and this is how we do this here, and keeping information private is very important to us, and keeping the timeline, and everyone plays an important role. It's like any organizational video that you would see, like you do your annual training for your company. It was like that cheesy, and it was I'm like, okay. So the woman who was responsible for that, her ass is knocked out, and she's snoring on the other side of the room. So Diego ends up sneaking out. He ends up slipping away while this woman is passed out, and everybody else is watching that cheesy ass video. So back at the bar, they're now all sitting down at a table, and this is where we find out where number 5 was when he made the jump. So he's explaining to him, okay, this is the time where he actually made the decision to leave the organization. He was there to make sure the assassination was supposed to happen, but he broke from the organization. This is when he jumped back to 2019. And that's why he was stuck in the body that he was in, because the calculations were off. And he's explaining to him how, he would explain to him how he could do this and to get it right, so that when he does go back to 2019, he'll go back as an adult instead of being stuck in the body of a kid. But the trade-off is that he wants the time traveling device. And so the older number 5 decides, okay, you know what? I got to take a piss, so I'm going to go do that. And I'm just going to go do that. So Diego's now walking around the office, and it was just way too convenient for him to, he was able to sneak out of this class, and you're kind of like milling around this office, and he finds his way into the control room. And so he's there trying to figure out how all this stuff works. And Herb walks in, so of course he snatches up Herb, and Herb is like, yeah, you're Diego, like, you're a legend, you're number 2, you're a legend, and that. But he was like, you can't be in here. And Diego convinces him, I need to see the day that Kennedy was assassinated. And so Herb was able to pull that video up. And what he saw was, it wasn't a shot. You saw the FBI building in the background, and the FBI building exploded. And what they saw was, it was like, okay, so they kind of rolled it back, like what caused that to happen? And so he saw that it was Vanya. Now keep in mind, Vanya is currently being held in the FBI building, and she is currently been drugged in essence. So she's kind of really out of it. She's going back and forth between, in her mind, with her reality and whatever this dream state that she's in, where she's going back and forth. And so now he realizes that, oh, that's what Hazel was saying, that Vanya is the bomb. Vanya's always the bomb. And so he says, I have to get back to Dallas. And so Herb takes him into the case management office, and they already had a case there. And they provided him with the means to get back to Dallas. So number 5 is in the restroom. Luther walks in, and of course they start talking. And the old number 5 was like, you know what? I think it would be better for you and I to go back to 2019, and we could dispose of number 5. Like, he wants to knock off the younger version of himself, and he wants to go back. He himself wants to go back with Luther and everybody, and he was like, that would be the better option. It's like, look, he's already starting to deal with the effects of, meeting himself in his current timeline. And so it'll just be a mercy, just for us to get rid of him. And so Luther's like, oh, okay. So they go out and look, and you can see number 5, the younger number 5, he was still at the table having a drink or something, I don't know. And he's looking at them all suspicious. And then the guy was like, the older number 5 was like, okay, I think we should go. And then the younger number 5 was like, okay, well, why are you in such a hurry all of a sudden? So the older number 5 was like, maybe, your paranoia is starting to kick in. And of course, number 5 was like, I'm just fine. Like, he's so funny. He's too funny. But he's like, nah, yeah, you trying to plan some shit. I got my eye on you, my good eye on you. So the FBI is still questioning Vanya. So eventually, she's still sitting at the table, and the servers come out and they sit a plate, a dish in front of all of them. They pull the cover off, and it's a brain. It looked quite disgusting. And so he was so her father was at the end of the table, like, why don't you taste it? Are you afraid? Like, it was like, basically, it was just about her being afraid to remember, because everything that they've told her at this point has not really been that good for her. Like, you were the cause of a lot of this stuff. I mean, yeah, we played a role, but you played a bigger role, and so it's like this battle of her. She wants to remember, but she's also afraid to remember what happened. So Allison and Raymond, they're rolling up the body in one of his carpets. Klaus and Ben are sitting on the couch talking again. Remember, nobody can see Ben. So again, Klaus is looking like a crazy person. Like, they're looking like, who is he talking to? Well, I mean, Allison knows that he can talk to the dead, but of course Raymond doesn't know that. So to Raymond, he just looks like a crazy person. Like, why is this dude just sitting up here talking? And he was basically asking Ben, like, what was it like? And Ben was explaining to him, like, what it was like to be able to be in his body and to be able to touch things. It's been so long, and they had a little moment. So next thing you know, Diego and Herb arrives, and he gives them an update on the situation, about how Vanya is the cause of this. She caused the explosion at the FBI building, and then the president and the government thought that it was an attack from Russia, and that is what kicked off World War III, and they need to get to Vanya as soon as they can. And so Raymond is having a difficult time. I mean, there's people just appeared in his house out of nowhere. Allison has another brother, Diego, because at this point he hadn't met Diego at this point, and he's just like, okay, like he's about on the verge of having a nervous breakdown. Allison basically told him that she loves him, and that she wished things could be different, but he was like, but you have to go, and she was like, yeah, I have to go. And so at that point they all left to try to stop Vanya from creating an international incident. Okay, so Lila, she eventually goes back to the class. At this point, the training or orientation is supposed to be over. Of course, Diego's nowhere to be found, and his little booklet is still there on the desk. And now she's like, okay, where did he go? What's going on? So the agent, he's still questioning Vanya, and you can see her powers are starting to manifest. And while she's jumping back and forth between a present where the FBI agents questioning her, she's still in her mind where her dad is telling her you need to eat more of the brain, and then she takes a huge bite, and all of a sudden all of these memories start coming flooding back to her, and now her power is just in full force, full bloom, and she's now like, she doesn't realize what's going on around her, but I mean, she's basically destroying this building. But the thing is, Harlan is also being impacted by what's going on with Vanya. So eventually, she gets to the point where her eyes open, and if you're familiar with how her power works, her eyes lights up and like it's a bright blue, as her entire body is kind of glows and has this blue glow. And she opens her eyes and it's blue, and Harlan opens his eyes and his eyes are also blue. So something happened when she says there was some transfer of something, and Harlan is now, he's impacted by what's going on with Vanya. Allison, Diego, and Klaus, they're in the lobby. They're basically just holding on for dear life because it's like the building is basically about to implode. All the other employees, it seems like basically the agent and the nurse that was in the office, they're dead. It's just, they're just hanging on for dear life and trying to wait for it to pass, so they're able to actually at least try to find her. I mean, at this point it might be too late, but yeah, that's basically how this episode ended. So I'm just interested to see what happens with Harlan though. But I'm going to end this here, and I will talk to you guys later.